Blog Talk Radio.
And good morning, and welcome to Reform to Freedom Ministries. And so thank you for tuning in with us on today. We've been having a little complications in the studio because it seemed like the studio was trying to cut off just a second ago, so hopefully everyone is still here. So again, thank you for being a part on the show on today. And we have our returning guest back, Ms. Laura Wetzel, and she will be sharing some information with us in regards to some things of her experience behind bars. And, of course, we know that this podcast is to be able to help individuals to share their stories, share their experiences, as well as how they were able to overcome and triumph through beyond the bars. And so we also have Mr. Bradley Cobb that is on the broadcast with us today. And so he will also be sharing some details with us, as well as to where he is at now as to him and his success. And also we have one more guest that's with us today, and he is none other than Mr. Stephen Ogden. So good morning, everyone, once again, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
And so we're going to get started, Bradley.
Good morning,
with you.
and thank you for having me.
Okay, and you're welcome. And so, Bradley, we're going to get started with you first. We want you to be able to share with the audience and as well with the rest of the panel a little bit about you from earlier on before you were, perhaps maybe convicted or wrongly convicted or what have you. So we want you to kind of take us a little bit back as to what your plans were before all of this occurred, and then a little bit about you after it occurred, and then as to what, how you have turned this around to be a success story for you today.
Yes, ma'am. First and foremost, my name is Bradley Cobb. I'm 35 years old. I'm a workforce development specialist with the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis. Thank you for allowing me to be on your program. Also, a little bit about myself. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. I was born in the St. Louis County, Bonita Park area. I was primarily raised by a single mother. I used to go spend the summers with my father, and he stayed in different places across the country as a minister. And so I was able to kind of see the country via being with him. So I would say that I had a pretty good childhood. Both my parents, went to college. They have master's degrees. They graduated from Mizzou. University of Missouri for folks that don't know. So, I grew up with a pretty good family. Everybody was pretty, successful in their life and their business ventures. And, I had a pretty good upbringing. And my issue came down the pipe to I have been diagnosed with adult ADD. And so I think that had a say in what occurred in my life, trying to deal with that. But also, I grew up in the suburbs. I had a pretty good upbringing, and my childhood was great. And, when I became a teenager, I began to kind of have that teenage angst that we all feel and wanted to fit in, belong, and things of that nature. And so, I started to, find out about partying and going out and hanging out with friends and, drinking and smoking weed and things of that nature. And I would say over the course of the past 20 years, it's kind of been that. I was always more concerned with throwing a good party or having fun than I was with actually taking care of my business. I worked in the restaurant field for a good majority of my life. I was in small business at one point. I caught my first case when I was 18 years old and spent my 19th birthday incarcerated, so that was a shock for me and the experiences that went with it. But, I've pretty much since, I'd say 2003, 2004, it's been kind of an in and out type of situation as far as incarceration with me. And I just recently finished I did 4.5 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections from May 2015 until November of 2019, and I did altogether about 4.5 years. And in May 29th of 2020, I actually completed my supervision and finished my parole. So at this juncture, I'm actually not on anything. So it's a blessing.
Okay. Perfect. So we're going to go to you, Laura, and let you be able to share a little bit about you and from some things of what we have shared and what you have shared on the podcast earlier the last couple of weeks, and let the audience get a little bit familiar with you, because this is a new platform. Stephen has also been on here once before too, but this is a new platform, different from the one that you were, both of you were on previously. So with this one, we would like for you to kind of share with the audience a little bit to how some things can get started off good. So just like and so I want to piggyback on something that Bradley had said before you respond to that. Sometimes we think that people come up in a poor demographic. We think that they destined for bad. We think that's going to be the bad. But sometimes we can also be raised in a real good Christian home, and sometimes we just make the right healthy decisions and what have you and things. So this is just not for somebody that, their parents are bad, their parents are on drugs, or, because people will stigmatize, they will stereotype other individuals and make other people feel that it's in the minority or they come from a poor background as to the reason why they were incarcerated. So thank you so much for clarifying that, Bradley. So go ahead, Laura.
Yes, I was adopted when I was about 18 months by a Caucasian family in rural Pennsylvania. My upbringing wasn't very nice. I suffered all kinds of different abuse. I only went to school till about third grade. The school board said they didn't want colored people in school, so I didn't go. Sometimes I went to work with my father. Sometimes I went to work with my brother. I was kind of a active child, ADD. I was hard to manage. There was a part of me that always knew that I wasn't supposed to be with them, and I kind of always longed to be with my real family. I actually didn't see my first black person until I was about 11. Some people always would say, well, how do you know that you weren't black? Well, if I wasn't raised around black people, I didn't really know until I saw somebody. And I went home and told my mom I saw somebody who looked like my arm. And then, it was a family affair. She had to, call my dad at work and say, Frank, come home. We kind of all piled in the station wagon, and I had to go show my family where I saw somebody who looked like my arm. I was in and out of state institutions because back then that was really the only place they had for you to go to. And then it just kind of went from, I started drinking at 9. I was raised Lutheran, so, in our church we had real Manischewitz wine, so I kind of did that. Smoking at 13, cigarettes. It just wasn't a very nice upbringing. And then as I got older, I just kind of got involved, with the wrong men, and got involved with heavier drugs and more drinking. And then I caught my first bank robbery case with my husband. I wrote the note, so I got charged as bank robbery 2. There was no gun involved, but the note said there was. I did 8 months in federal prison. I was out for about a year. They were getting ready to give me my kids back, and I just kind of lost hope. And then I robbed a bank, and I got 14 years. And in the 14 years that I was incarcerated, I did every single day except 28 days, because by law, they had to let me out because of my sentence. They had to let me do 28 days in a halfway house. And during my incarceration, I suffered all kinds of things. I did a lot of shoe segregation. I suffered a lot of abuse within the system from officers and other staff. It just wasn't a nice incarceration. I was one of the inmates that had to challenge everything. Use my administrative remedies. They didn't really like that. I had situations, just where I challenged the authority and, just different things. If there was something they did wrong, well, I was going to write it up. And they just didn't like that. They didn't like that at all, that an inmate could use their administrative remedy rights and, have some kind of reprimand on their part.
And then too, that's something that I just heard, and I'm gonna get to you in just a second, Stephen. That's something that I just heard. Two of the guests have ADD. I'm not for sure, and so that's another thing that we're trying to bring to the spotlight as to if we already know that individuals are already have a pre-existing issue. So why do sometimes individuals are challenged behind bars? So we're going to get to that in just a minute. We're going to go back to Bradley and things, and we're going to discuss it in just a minute. So we want to bring Stephen on and bring him onto the introduction panel to be able to share a little bit about him and as to what his goals are for the future as to overcoming some of the obstacles that he has overcame since being incarcerated.
Okay. First off, Ann, I'd like to thank you for having me back on and letting me be a part of your platform. And I would like to tell your other two guests that I'm honored to be here with both of you. Congratulations for making it out, doing good, and getting our life started.
Thank you.
So a little bit about myself. Like Mr. Cobb, I came from a good home, great family. My father was high up in the oil business. We lived in Houston, Texas for a while. My family fell apart. My mom moved up to Colorado, started drinking heavily, with no discipline, no direction, nobody there to watch me. I started going down a bad path. And just like you noticed, your other two guests with ADD, I was diagnosed with ADD. That was later on, but I'm sensing a pattern here. And I started getting in a lot of trouble. I went to juvenile prison at 13, was released, went back at 16, went from juvenile facility directly to the county jail, from county jail to prison. I cut off my ankle monitor, went back to prison, got out, cut off my ankle monitor, went back to prison again, but this time to federal prison. I had been arrested with a shotgun. I did 5 years almost in United States Penitentiary, Florence. Throughout my stays, I did, like Laura, I did a lot of solitary time. I did 4 years of solitary confinement at the Colorado State Penitentiary. At about 18 years old, I was recruited and indoctrinated into a prison gang. But after many years of, guilt, knowing I shouldn't be a part of this, just going through it, I made a conscious decision to get out of it. I got out of it. And as a matter of fact, yesterday I started getting my tattoos removed, which I posted the videos on Facebook, and I think I sent you copies of them. So I've been working extremely hard to change my life. I'm trying to be involved as much as possible in prison and criminal justice reform. I'm going to college now for computer networking, something I did while in prison. I didn't get my certifications, so I'm brushing up and going to be getting my certifications here soon. I have a beautiful woman in my life, a stepson. My family's here with me now, my dad, my sister, my mom, my girl, her family. They've embraced me. So I've made some positive changes. I'm making all the right choices, and I'm moving ahead with my future.
Absolutely, absolutely. What a great testimony. So we're going to go back to Bradley, and so I'm not for sure what type of experience that you perhaps while the times that you were behind bars, but this is in regards to all three of the guests today having ADD, and so I know Laura experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of catastrophic situations behind bars. So why do you feel, Bradley, that sometimes individuals will provoke? That's what I'm kind of feeling that's where it's coming from. See, because it's another prisoner that is incarcerated. Thank the Lord that you all are out, but this one is trying to get out, and we're trying to help him to get freed. And so he has experienced so much trauma. Not for sure if he's been diagnosed with ADHD or ADD or what have you and things. So let me kind of give you a little bit background information about his case. And so what they do, what has happened to him, his DNA did not match, so the DA got it wrong. So instead of them going back and saying in front of the media, we got this wrong, okay, the TBI goes in here. Just listen, just follow me real good. The TBI, which is the state of Tennessee, that's where we are. So they, the TBI stated that they testified first and said that the DNA was his. They went back to the inmate and said it was not his. So, anyways, he now they're trying to give him 65 years for something that he did not do, that they said that he did not do. And so due to that fact that he has not signed the plea, so all of you all listen to this, he has not signed the plea due to the fact they want their own political ego, of course, the district attorney, prosecutor, public defenders, the TBI. They want to shine in the media, but they don't want to go back and say that they did anything wrong. So with that being said, according to the prisoner, he was taken to court, not given water, food, or anything, no restroom, amenities or anything like that for like 15 hours straight. It takes him about 4 hours to get to court, stay in the court, go back. And so that's probably about 8, 9, 10, 12 hours and things like that, something like that. So why do you feel that there is so much punitive treatment towards individuals, whether they have the ADD, they don't have the ADD, or it's just, I've never heard of this type of outrage in the prison institutions in all of my days.
Well, I think that one, as we had spoken about previously, I think that the biggest issue that occurs in the court system and the judicial system, criminal justice and so forth, is that it's not are you guilty or innocent until proven guilty. It's you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And that is kind of the mindset and the mentality of the court system. So when you have this sweeping mentality all across the court system that leads into the prosecutors, the judge, the bailiffs, the correctional officers, the wardens, and everyone involved on that side of the coin, they tend to, as the old saying goes, to a hammer, everything is a nail. And so there's no actual recourse for the most part on individuals who want to fight for their freedoms because the odds are already stacked against you. And so a lot of what the prosecutors tend to do borderlines on being unconstitutional, and sometimes it is unconstitutional. And the reason that there's such an uproar is because of all the things that have occurred lately between, George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and things of that nature. So people tend to be paying more attention than they once were. And so, I just think that it's detrimental not only to our justice system but also to our society that people are so easily thrown away. And, I just think that, from my experiences, I know that in at least in St. Louis County in Missouri, one of the things that they tend to do is the prosecutor tends to have more power, sometimes even more so than the judge So
there you go.
if you have the individual who essentially is there to make you guilty, that's his job. His job isn't to seek the truth. His job is to find you guilty, because it's about statistics. It's about getting those numbers up. It's about keeping those jails full so those lobbyists can make their money. It's about crowding these rural locations with these prisons and these inmates so that they can get tax revenue from it, and so they can get census money from it. You know, I worked at the Urban League, and we just had an event yesterday where we were announcing about how we want people in minority communities to, you know, fill out the census and things of that nature. And what they don't realize is their cousin Lamont that went to whatever prison in rural Missouri, guess what? Lamont is no longer a resident of St. Louis City or County. Lamont is a resident of Moberly, Missouri. And so now what happens is that when they do the census, each one of those inmates are put down as residents of that county, even though they really are not.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. If you're from St. Louis, and every time you fill out a piece of paper, the address is your St. Louis home address, and you're incarcerated, you're still technically a citizen of the area of St. Louis. But being that you're incarcerated, the actual Department of Corrections makes you a citizen of whatever county you're in. That's why all the prisons, if you notice, every state in the United States, every prison, the prisons are in rural America. And the reason they're in rural America, because A, the land is cheap, B, they can pad their stats with minorities and say, oh, we've got X amount of black people living out here, we need money for X, Y, Z. Or we have X amount of Hispanic people out here, so we need money for X, Y, and Z, or Asians or whatever. And so now they can pad their stats as though they've got this blossoming, diverse community when really they're talking about their jail.
Yep. True.
Okay. So we're going to go to Laura. Laura's case is very sensitive to us, and that's the reason why I continue to bring her on to the show, in order for her voice to be heard, and also for individuals to perhaps maybe reach out to her in the future as to how she can. And then, too, after we share some things about Laura's case, I would love for both of you all, Stephen and Bradley, to be able to give some feedback to Laura, because I don't know everything. You know, and when it comes to injustice and justice reform and things. So we would like for you, Laura, if you would, to share the incident as to some medical challenges that you have gone through, and the institution being aware of all of these things before you entered into their institution, and then later they continue to apply these cruel treatments against you, even though they know you had these problems from the beginning. I don't understand how an institution can get away with that fact. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, so my medical issues, for example, I have sleep apnea, so I have a CPAP machine. I have heart conditions. I have pancreatic masses. I have a splenic artery aneurysm that actually was trauma-related when some officers kicked me in my side with some steel-toed boots. And then also a physician assistant jumped on top of my stomach. So I have a medical duty slip that said they're not allowed to spray me with any sprays or with any gases or anything like that. So that goes with you from institution to institution. So yet they flash bombed me, gas grenaded me, and I was in the shoe when they did that. So you have to imagine this little tiny room that you're in. I'm sitting in this little tiny room writing a letter, not bothering anybody, when they open the trap door and start firing at me these flash bombs and gas grenades. So even though I had the medical duty slip that said they weren't allowed to do it, they did it anyway. And things of that nature. Or they would open my cell door and just rush me, throw me on the ground, handcuff me, shackle me, just kind of rough me around just because they could. Not because I was doing anything per se, because a lot of my shoe time I did it housed alone. But just because they were the police and they could do it. I noticed in my time being incarcerated that a lot of the guards, lieutenants, administration were very, very angry when they came to work. I mean, you didn't have to do anything to them. It was just like they had that power. So if they wanted to throw your food tray at you that day, they just did it. My fault was that I reacted poorly to them. So if they would throw it in the slot at me, I would throw it back at them. So I admit I didn't do my time very well, but I didn't expect to be treated like that either. I didn't expect to go into the Federal Bureau of Prisons and be abused physically, to be degraded, to be called names, and also not fed, to be shackled for 38 hours, to, be on a concrete slab with no clothes on just because they could, to get 3 squares of toilet paper, and then laugh at you. So some of the things that I suffered wasn't the result that I was doing anything. It was more of the result that, hey, we're the police and we can do it just because. It wasn't that I was doing anything to myself. They would do it just as a behavior thing. So if the officer was cussing me out for no reason, well, I was cussing the officer right back. And then they were taking me to confinement. So it got to the point where they generated this picture posted file on me, this PPS, which is kind of like an alert in your jacket. So I started just getting shipped all around the Bureau of Prisons. So every prison I went to, my paperwork would get there before I would. So automatically when I would get off the bus, I would go right to the SHU because of this paperwork. Nobody wanted me in their institution because, one, I was taking 30-something medications. I would come with a machine, and then I would come with that jacket. So right away that jacket would make them treat me bad. It's not that I necessarily did everything that they said I did, because my firm thing that I would always say is, hey, you don't have to believe the paperwork. So after I'd be in their institution for a while, guards would actually come up to me and say, hey, Wetzel, what's the deal? You're not what your paperwork says. Why are they saying this in your paperwork when you're nothing like that? So it just became the paperwork thing. And then policy said each institution could have took away that PPF on me if they really wanted to. They just didn't want to. And then program, I had over 2,300 and something program hours. I had an apprenticeship through the Department of Labor. I even programmed while I was in the SHU. I made them start programming me in the SHU because they kept me so much in confinement where I would say, well, hey, if you're going to house me in there, then I want something to do. I know there's some workbooks, something you can give me. So then each institution would actually give me workbooks and give me program hours, for that. So I had enough program hours that when Obama passed that law about you have so many program hours you can go home, they wouldn't even let me go home. They would tell me all the time, hey, Wetzel, we could let you go home if we want to, but we don't want to let you go home. So I had a lot of program hours and I had a lot of programs I started in institutions as well that I could have went home for, and they would just always tell me, unit teams, we're not going to let you go home. you'll do all your time. And essentially that's what happened. I did all my time just because they didn't want to let me go home.
Okay, so we're going to put a pin in that right there and stuff, and so we're going to go to Stephen. And so, Stephen, after hearing, we're trying to get, information. We're here to help each other out, okay? And so I'm also trying to assist Ms. Wetzel as well as in regards to other prisoners around the country. That's just what we do with our organization. And so with that being said, Stephen, okay, and so how would you go in and try to pursue, because they have done some very malicious things to Laura. So how would you handle that if you're trying to go up against perhaps maybe an institution or an organization who has allowed it? How would you be able to handle that? What would be the steps that you would try to take in order to perhaps, and I'm thinking, and I'm not going to say everything of what Laura and I have discussed. I'm not going to bring that out there. I'm just asking you of your opinion as to if you're seeking restitution, and we're not talking about just monetary restitution, but restitution as to perhaps bring some of these things to light as to what has happened to her. Even she was testifying on the other broadcast of how they picked her up and took her head and rammed it into the steel door, and used it as something like a weapon or something like that, just because they could. So what would you offer to Laura as to how she would be able to resolve some of these issues and bring some of this stuff to the public?
Well, first off, Laura, I'd like to say that I'm sorry for everything you went through. And then I would also like to say that I've been through many similar situations. I don't know exactly what happened in her situation other than what she's told us. I know that with my story, when I was in solitary confinement, when I was locked in the SHU in Florence, every time that team came to my door, I had done something. I'm not saying they handled it the correct way, but I had provoked the officers, and I had been cell extracted. And when they cell extracted, they do in federal prison, they definitely throw the flashbangs in. I had them stick a canister gun through one of my cellie's door, shooting rounds at us. We had the door barricaded. So I was in the wrong for what I did. Now, today I'm not armed. I'm inside of a cell, and they're shooting a canister gun in there. Why couldn't they have just said, you know what, they're locked in there, leave them alone until they calm down? Now, I think Laura is on the right track. She's doing what she's supposed to do now. She is speaking out about injustice. She's bringing this stuff to light. At what point do we say, hey, these people are locked in cells? Why do you need to throw a canister in there? Where is the accountability for that? And that starts right here on platforms like this, doing exactly what Laura's doing. Whether we were wrong for what we did, yeah, okay, we were. We're sick and tired of being locked in a cell, and we act out. Why can't a mental health professional come down and say, hey, Stephen, Laura, what's going on? Talk to me. Why is your door barricaded? Why is your window covered? It's not like we're in there with hostages. It's not like we're in there, you don't have to assault us. What's going on there is they're angry. They're upset that we're challenging their authority, and they're saying, this is how we respond to that. And they beat us down to the point where we don't want to challenge authority anymore. And I think that the problem with myself when I was doing that was I didn't realize there was a different way. And maybe back then there wasn't. Today, we have these platforms to speak on. Back then, whether they were there or not, we didn't have access to them. And we did what we could to be heard. But today, we have this beautiful platform. I just did a Zoom podcast with another group called Life After Felony. And I'm sure Laura will probably be getting more and more involved. And as time goes on, it's something my dad tells me all the time. The best revenge is to do good, change our lives, and to prove to society that we are worth it. And by us getting on here speaking, getting involved with the people that are incarcerated and getting their voices heard,
getting laws passed saying you can't go in those cells and attack them because they challenged your authority, because they wrote a grievance on you. You know, those kind of things, every time they use force, anytime they do that, it needs to be the exact same thing as it is out here as it is in there. They need to be held accountable for it. They need to be shown on paper exactly why they use force. And when there's no evidence of why, or if they delete their body camera footage, if there's any of that, if they delete the cameras, those officers need to be fired. And the wardens of those facilities need to be held accountable, because they're, you know, this, what is it? I forget, some sort of immunity that they have. You know, they're not held accountable. They just write it off and they back their officers up. So how do we get the inside brought to the forefront of society's eyes? Because as Mr. Cobb said, you know, once these prosecutors get us in there, we're in a black hole. Nobody knows what's going on. And then when something does come up, they just say, no, they're in there being violent. That's why that happened. And society is so desensitized to us as humans. They don't look at us as human beings. They call us offenders, inmates, convicts. You know, so when it is brought up, everyone's like, it's just a bunch of convicts, or it's just some inmates. You know, but we're in there as human beings, being demoralized. You know, the strip searches we go through. I was being released from prison 3 weeks ago. They brought me to receiving. I was strip searched, made to go through. You know, and I'm callous to it because I've done it so many times. But why am I callous? They make me do the most just gross stuff during a strip search, and Mr. Cobb probably knows, and we're used to it. So, you know, but why do we have to be used to that? And I don't want to be too graphic, but as males, they make us squat and cough. What does that do? It does nothing but embarrass us, and they know that nothing. They're not going to find anything that way. You know, they strip search Laura in front of men, you know, and, you know, they go down that path. And why? And it's not because they're looking for contraband so much, because they have technical devices that will find any bit of contraband on us. And they spend billions of dollars on this machine, this prison industry, to where they don't need to use an officer to strip search us. They can take us and put us through a metal detector and a body scanner. And then they wouldn't have to use as many officers. But they do it to break us down, to dehumanize us, and to show us that we are just cattle. And, you know, it's like these county jails. You were talking about the county jails and why they treat us like they do. Mr. Cobb was talking about the prosecutors. And, you know, in Colorado, you go to the county jail, you're on 18-hour lockdown pretty much. Commissary for a 10-cent ramen noodle costs $1.50, you know. You have a phone call that costs you $5, $10, you know, and they make it so miserable in there that prison sentence, after a short period of time, starts sounding good. And after a long period of time, it sounds like freedom. And it's because that prosecutor is in cahoots with that sheriff. And they have come up with a plan that this plan says that these guys are going to be so miserable in there that they're going to take any deal possible to get out of it.
Wow.
And the public defenders are involved in it, the district attorneys, the sheriffs, the undersheriff, you know, the guys running these jails. They know that if they make our life miserable, we're going to take that plea agreement because we can't bond out, because we can't see our family. They don't even do in-contact visits in the county jails. I have to see my family that they have to pay for $10 for a 15-minute visit over a video screen. And, you know, and then they tell them, oh, no, we have family contacts. We have family ties. We promote that stuff. But they really don't. And then the programs, you know, the minimal amount of programs that they give us, they pump to society like they're life-changing. But if you are lucky enough to get that life-changing program, it's minimum, and it's not what it's been promoted as. And I think that we all, Laura, Mr. Cobb, you, all of us need to get together and network and bring this stuff to the forefront of society, because, and maybe not just as criminal justice reform, say, hey, your tax dollars are being spent to do this. You know, because some people don't care about us, but they care about their dollar. You know, I care about my dollar. I care about my family's dollar. You know, so I think we need to find other ways to start getting this message out to society.
Absolutely. Because just to piggyback on a couple of things that you said, Stephen, in regards to sometimes individuals will do certain things and stuff, and of course, strip searching has always been a part of an incarcerated institution and intake and what have you. But sometimes individuals will do these routine, mandated processes due to try to break down the individual's mentality, to be able to humble them, or actually to be able to, sometimes it's like a funny issue to some individuals and things. And so I think in some correctional areas and states, they don't suppose to even strip search a female if a male is present. But anyway, that's for another podcast or another date. So, Bradley, in regards to what, and the reason why we're bringing Laura's issue to light is because she is trying to make an impact as to bringing these things to the forefront as to what has happened to her. She has been around to several institutions all over the United States, and all of them, she stated to the audience, as well as to you all as the guest panel, that every place that she goes, they have her labeled, they have her targeted, because her jacket gets there before she does. So what type of information could you be able to offer to Laura in this case in regards to her pursuing, further litigation, even against some of these individuals, that perhaps have applied this mental anguish? I guess that would be the perfect word as to what she has gone through while she has been incarcerated for that time.
So I would first want to congratulate everybody on being out and being successful and following their path. It's not easy. I've been to prison multiple times, jail multiple times, and so for me, the first thing I want listeners and viewers to understand is that, this system was built on a lie. And that lie was essentially that we will protect you from, people who do society wrong. But when the people who do society wrong start to become the people who are in positions of authority, and who in fact is the criminal. Secondly, one of the things that, I have done is I had to fight, point blank, period. I had to fight like a dog to get where I'm at. And, I have, I think, 25 felony counts on my record or something like that. And, the crime that I have the most on my record is burglary. Which is, in Missouri, Class C burglary is like kind of like an entry-level felony because it's nonviolent. And so I was using heroin and I was stealing to support my habit and so on and so forth. But what I try to do is use my testimony and my life experience to share that with individuals who may be going down the same path or are already going down the same path. So all you can do at this point, because I've done a lot of bad. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm no angel, and I don't expect sympathy from anybody. What I do ask for, as I think every human being asks for, is respect, dignity, being able to be proud of yourself and have pride in your actions and how it affects other people. So, the biggest thing I can say is that, like a gentleman was saying earlier, is that, we who have been incarcerated have been through what I would consider post-traumatic stress. And
yes,
there's not only the trauma with the staff, there's also the trauma with your fellow inmates.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, it's yeah. They built jails for a reason. I'm gonna say that they built them for a reason. Okay. There's some people that they're where they need to be, and so I wish that there was more they could do for them inside of there to maybe facilitate them when they do get released but there are definitely a lot of people who thrive on creating victims. And so, I, for one, have made a decision in my life that certain behavior will not be exhibited by me, that I will not do certain things, I will not go certain places, so on and so forth. But the biggest takeaway is that, the system is corrupted, and I think that pretty much everybody that, has any type of sense will kind of agree to that. And so, with that being said, the best thing we can do is ex-offenders, people who have been through the system, is to not be in the system.
Okay.
And so, a lot of times, like what we do here at the SOS program in the Urban League, what we do, we were birthed out of the death of Mike Brown. Matter of fact, the building I work in, where I sit right now, is actually the Quick Trip that was burnt down during the Ferguson protest. And we built an Urban League here, and we have a program here called the Save Our Sons program, in which we get young black men, not just black, but young men from the metropolitan St. Louis area, and we give them job skills, communication skills, teach them how to market themselves, teach them how to educate themselves, and how to dress, how to speak, different things like that. So that, and these are individuals who've been to prison. The ages are from 17 to 64, so we deal with people who, guys who just got out of high school and just are looking to, train up so they can get a good job. But we also deal with guys who are 50 and 60 years old who just sat in prison 30 years. And so there's a fine line between people who I would say maybe have been to college and different things like that and can, talk about certain things versus someone who has actually lived it, And he was talking earlier about, the strip searches and things of that nature. In Missouri, at least, it had gotten to a point where they would make you bend over, spread your buttocks, open your rectum yourself, and bounce.
Oh.
I'm dead serious.
Oh.
And so I went to the hole. That's what we call, confinement there. I went to the hole. I said, I'm not twerking for you. And that's how it is, And then also, and I hate to say this, but if you're a black kid from St. Louis City or whatever metropolitan areas close to, the big metropolitan areas in that state, and you're out in a rural area with individuals who are not exactly, I'll put it like this, they probably didn't vote for Hillary. So, with that being said, you're out there with a lot of them type of people, they got rebel flags on the back of their trucks and so on and so forth. You're not going to get any love. They don't care if you don't eat in the hole. I remember the night Obama won the first time for president, and I was at ERDCC, and there was an officer there named King, and he would not let anyone in the hole eat because Obama had won. We had to wait till we were supposed to eat dinner. We had to wait till it was 1 a.m. before we ate dinner. And so
how was that justified? How was that justified? Did the captains allow that type of behavior?
Oh, they don't care. They're friends. They go out drinking together on the weekends.
Oh.
So if the captain is the brother-in-law to the guy doing you wrong, then guess what? You have nothing coming. Especially when they can write it off and fudge the paperwork. I hear a lot about police brutality. Well, what about free casing people? What about planting evidence? What about suppressing evidence? What about there's so many different avenues. What about lying on police reports and things of that nature? What are these individuals into when they get off of work? What are their psychological issues? What are their backgrounds as far as it comes to race relations and different things like that? If you do a thorough check of the law enforcement community, you will see a certain mentality, and everybody in prison knows what it is. Everybody who's been incarcerated knows that there's a certain type of individual that becomes a law enforcement agent. Now, they may have originally in the beginning, some of them had, I want to help the community and da-da-da-da. But for those few people that are formed between, they get lost in the fold next to the people who are just in it for the power and like that feeling of authority. So this is so deep that we could spend hours on it, days, weeks, months. But the only thing I can say to my fellow ex-offenders is that you are valued, you are loved, and you are a shining example of what it means for someone to actually reform. Because I didn't reform because the state of Missouri wanted me to reform. I reformed because I wanted to. I wanted to be. And so until a lot of individuals can cross that threshold where they actually can look themselves in the mirror, humble themselves before their creator and realize that, hey, this is not the way I want to live, then they will continue to get caught up in a system that has no love for them, that does not show them pride or does not even care about their health. I've seen guys die because of the lack of medical help in facilities. I've seen it.
Oh wow.
So.
Oh wow. Okay. So Stephen, this is what we're going to address next. We're trying to help Laura, y'all. Okay, we're trying to help Laura. So, excuse me. So a lot of times when it comes to video cameras, they can disappear, they can go away, and sometimes they won't even be working. But as far as the flash bomb or chemical, they call it different terms in different institutions. Some call it chemical agents, some call it, spray or what have you and things. And so in her institutions that she had been at, they've called them flash bombs. So wouldn't there be, and I know this for a fact, but it's been a while since I've worked for the federal institutions. I know when they had to flash bomb people back in the day, they had to document it. So is there something where it will cause her not to be able to retrieve that information? That question is for Stephen.
So it's a good question. The answer to that is if she files suit, if she does a 1983 into the courts and files a lawsuit, once she gets to discovery phase, they are going to have to give her every bit of that information. But Mr. Cobb made a great statement a minute ago. He said, what about these officers that lie on those reports? So when they flash bombed her, what did they say on that report? And you're not going to know until you get it. But my assumption is going to be they're going to say that she was in there cutting on herself, she was trying to kill herself, she was doing this and doing that, and we had to take immediate action. So, and the officers that came along and did the flashbanging, they might not have even seen what the real issue was, that Laura was telling the guard, hey, I don't like you, I don't like how you're treating me, F you, I'm sure, it was something along those lines. And that officer said, hey, she's in there doing whatever, self-abuse, we got to get her now. The officers send the team down. They do exactly what they were told to do. The report reads just like that. So what is Laura's action for that? How can she fight against that? And the answer is she really can't, because in the court of law, I've been to trial, and I had the judge tell me just like this in chambers when I was picking my jury. She said, officers never lie.
Oh, wow.
So that is that's status quo. That's how they believe. So if you get a jury that hears the report that she was cutting herself and doing self-harm and they had to flashbang her, and Laura was like, no, that's not what was happening, who are they going to believe? So if she gets those reports, she really doesn't have a lot of action if that's what they did. And they're never going to say on the report that they were just retaliating because they didn't like her.
Okay.
I think
that
I'm just going to jump in real quick. I think that for real, I'm going to be honest, I'm not. I don't like to be a bubble buster, but I'm gonna have to agree with him. When you get, and it's just from my experience in Missouri. I can't speak for other states. In Missouri, it has to have been so. It had to have been so blatant that it was undeniable. If there's any inkling of something, well, I didn't see it, or I don't know if it went like, if there's any of that, your case is going to get dismissed. Because the thing about it is, I just want you to understand this. The governor and the Senate and the legislature in each state, they dictate where money goes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So they dictate where this money goes. The money that they would be spending to, let's say, fight on your behalf is costing them money because the money has to come from somewhere. It's coming from the state's, the state's cumulative revenue or whatever. It's coming from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not going to spend their money to help you. We're talking about we can't even get health care in certain states. We can't get schools and funding. Do you really think that they're going to embarrass one of their fellow law enforcement officers in the law enforcement community who they have to appease, Democrat or Republican? You have to appease those individuals that like the police. And so they're not going to let you win that lawsuit unless it was so blatant. Okay? And so what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up wasting a bunch of time trying to fix something that has already occurred. Okay? So what I would recommend is for you to protest, right? Get a different, any legal form you can get that petitions and things of that nature. Sign these petitions. Use social media. Use your social media to the best of your ability because that is the quickest way to get a message out. I've noticed on social media when people say racist comments, they put them on blast, tell people where they work. Now, they're not threatening that individual or anything. If somebody calls somebody the N-word on Facebook and all of a sudden their name and their job location pops up, guess what? People are going to start to pay attention and say, maybe I shouldn't call somebody that online. Matter of fact, I'm just going to turn my computer off. You see what I'm saying? So what you have to do, you don't have that type of power, but you do have power, okay? And I'm not just talking about going to vote and different things like that, even though that is important. But you have power because you're an individual, and you can use your own power the way you want to use it. And what I would suggest doing is using that power to try to keep people from getting in that position in the first place. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Work in these communities. Talk to these brothers and sisters that are out here and explain to them what you've been through. Use your life as a testimony. Move forward because here's the other thing. As long as you're looking in the past, you can't move to the future.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying let it go. If you feel like somebody did something that egregious to you, yes, you should pursue it in the best way you can legally and so on and so forth. But at the same time, from my experiences, what I've seen, that stuff don't work. That stuff does not work, especially because you have a record. So they're going to automatically, you know what I'm saying, first off, you're going to go to some rural part of the state to go to court. You're not going to go to court where you live. You're going to go to court where the prison is. And the prison's in a rural area. And guess who more than likely is going to be the people sitting on that jury?
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? Their brother might work at the prison. Their cousin might work at the prison. So you're fighting an uphill battle. The battle is with the people. The battle is trying to get our people to understand a better way of living and to try to show them and assist them and teach them to be better individuals so that they don't get in the position of where you have to deal with that.
Okay, we got a few more minutes left, just only a few, probably about 2 minutes, and then after we let Laura respond because we want her to respond. We're not here to disencourage. We're trying to get information, and I think both of you all have left her with some very powerful tips, and I think Alan, who was an attorney, criminal defense attorney, had made somewhat of the same things, gestures, or gave the same tips in regards to the people going to have to get out and going to have to petition. And does it take a lot to get a petition started? Yeah, but that's the only way that we can perhaps maybe get individuals to be able to listen, and so we can be able to be heard. Now, at the end of the day, Laura, you still have your own discretion. You can use your own discretion, but I just wanted to be able to let you see it from both of their point of views. All of us are in different states. We have all different policies and procedures in different states. But I just wanted them to be able to give you some comfort as to how you can be able to move forward. Like I said, we're not calling any names or anything like that, but I just wanted to be able to share that, get their point of view so they can be able to see how you feel of what you're going through too. So you're going to be the last one to take us home with this podcast with only 2 minutes left, and then I'll go around to each visitor, each guest, and then you can be able to share how the audience can be able to follow you in the future. So go ahead, Laura.
Thank you for joining
Laura?
Reform to Freedom Ministries.
Hello?
Okay, are you there?
Yes,
go
can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you both for your feedback. It was something that I can think about and resonate with. A lot of the things that I'm doing, I left a lot of peers behind that are going through the same things that I went through. So a lot of my voice I want to do for them. So I thank you for what you had to tell me. And on a good note, I got a call from my attorney yesterday, and they're going to take me off probation early for my good behavior and just doing everything that they had me to do. So I thank you, and thank you for Diane for giving me another chance to hear my voice and get it out there.
Great. And so we're going to continue to do that, okay? And that same thing goes for Stephen, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to raise the awareness. We're trying to raise the awareness. And the reason why that we bring attorneys onto the podcast is to be able to let them hear what you're going through so they can be able to take this to their local jurisdictions and local judges of the outcries of you all have on the podcast. So we're going to start with Bradley, and you can be able to share with the audience as to how they want to follow you, if you desire for them to follow you, or any programs that you may have coming up in your location.
Well, again, I'm work for the Urban League Workforce Specialist. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Bradley Cobb on Facebook. Just look me up. I'm on there, Bradley Cobb on Facebook. I regularly post some of the events and some of the initiatives that we're putting forward here in the Urban League in Metropolitan St. Louis. So if you live in the Southern Illinois area, if you live in the St. Louis area, the surrounding counties, we're going to start branching out to those areas as well. And we actually are beginning to create partnerships with the Department of Corrections in order to start to bridge that gap between the Department of Corrections and the community, and from which the people will be released into, so that we can already have jobs waiting for these individuals as they come out. And, under the tutelage of our president, Mr. Mike McMillan, we've been able to make a lot of inroads. So if anyone wants to catch up with that and follow me on Facebook, Bradley Cobb.
Perfect. Stephen?
Well, again, I just want to thank you for having me. Thank you for having your two guests that were on today and connecting us together. I look forward to coming back. You can follow me on Facebook. I'm on under Stephen Forrest. I will be having a YouTube channel come up and a Facebook page, all on criminal justice and prison reform here soon. There'll be links on there for that. And I hope to hear from anybody that's looking to make a change in the United States of America on this prison state.
Absolutely. Laura, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And you can follow me also on Facebook.
Okay, great. So I would like to thank all of the guests for being a part of the show on today. What we're doing, we're trying to bring awareness for those that are left behind, as Laura had stated, and we're trying to be able to be a voice for those that cannot speak, those family members that do not have answers to questions that they have been puzzled about for so many years. This is the reason why we're here. And so, of course, we will be inviting each of you back onto the podcast to be able to share with the rest of the audience and other new guests that we have on the panel, so it can be able to gear and steer them in the right way, okay? And so until next time, you all be blessed.
Thank you. You too.
States.